centipede.
Sup YouTube, a Visual Gaming Network, and welcome to episode 6 of our Jetpack Joyride game in Java tutorial. Last episode, we created our thread and made our start and run method for our game. This episode, we're going to be putting our thread to use and actually make a game loop. Now, what a game loop is that, well, I'm going to explain to you guys how, Java executes its code. So what happens is that, let's say we made a game object and the code in the game constructor was called. What would happen is that Java would scan the first line of code, then it will go down and scan the next line of code, then it will go down one, scan the next line of code. But what happens is that once Java has finished executing that code, it doesn't go back. Now, when our game runs, we want it to keep updating itself and keep rendering or drawing itself onto the screen. We don't want it to only render and update once, then stop updating the game. Because once the Java actually has no more code to execute, it automatically closes. So without making a game loop, we can really only render our game and update our game once, then Java will stop. And we don't want that. We want our game to keep running for as long as it wants until we hit the close button. So that's what our game loop is for. Our game loop is pretty much going to keep our game running as long as it opens. So now, we're going to actually create our game loop in our run method. So I'm just going to type this out, you guys should follow on, and I'll explain it after I've typed it. So, I'll type while, and then type running inside of the brackets, and then give this a body. This thing is called a while loop, and it's pretty much saying, while running is equal to true, then execute all of the code that's inside the while loop. There's actually another type of loop, they're called for loops, but for loops aren't important right now, and I'll explain them when we need to use them. So, let's just say this is code. What happens is that while running is equal to true, Java will execute, the lines of code one by one, but Java won't go onto the other lines of code or close. It would actually go back to the top of the while loop and keep executing it again, and then go back to the top, keep executing it again and again and again, and it'll keep on executing the code in the while loop until the statement we are checking is not true. So making a while loop called while running is equal to true, Java is going to execute all of this code in the while loop again and again and again until we close our game, or our running boolean will equal to false. So yeah, in this while loop, we're actually going to constantly make our game update and constantly make our game render or draw itself onto the screen. Before we actually type proper code into this while loop, under our public void run method, we're going to create two new methods. Both of them will be a public void. The first, public void method, will be called render. It's going to take in no parameters, so you just put in the brackets, then give it a body. And the other one is going to be called tick. Now, if you're not sure what tick means, it pretty much is another word for update. Some people like to use tick, some people like to use update. I personally like to use tick, but you can call it update if you want. It's just that whenever I refer to or type in tick into the code, you need to type update instead, because tick is a method that doesn't exist in your code, but update will. So yeah, now just give your tick method a body. That'll take in no parameters as well. And in our while running loop, we're actually going to call these two render and tick methods, or tell Java to execute the code inside of the render and tick method. So to do that, we simply type render, then put the brackets, then fill in any parameters if we have to, and tick. So by typing this while running loop, we're pretty much telling Java while running is equal to true, then keep on executing the code inside of the render method and inside of the tick method until running is equal to false, or we close our game. So that's what we're pretty much doing. Now we're going to test if all this works. So to do that, we're going to go into our render method. And remember, when we created our game loop in episode 4 of this series, we called a method, and that method was system.out.println. And what it would do is that it will print out something in the console. We're going to do that again in our render method. We're going to type system.out.println, then take in the parameter we have to. The parameter will be a string parameter, and we're going to make our console say render every time this render method is called. And we'll do the same for our tick method, so I'm just going to copy this line of code, paste it into our tick method, but we'll just change render to tick. So now, as long as our game is running, our render and tick should constantly be printing out into the console. So yeah, we'll run our game by clicking the run button, and we'll test this out. Alright, so we'll check our console, and as you can see, render and tick are constantly being called. You can see the words are moving, which means it's actually being called. I'm sorry this is a bit of a shorter episode, but next episode will be a lot longer, I promise. And it'll be like the length of the other tutorials in this series that you guys are used to. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to wrap up this episode here. If you enjoyed, feel free to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe. If someone you know is interested in learning how to program in Java, or is interested in game devlogs, please let them know about this channel. And if you have a Twitter account, please feel free to follow me on Twitter. So I'll see you guys soon. Bye.